Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I request that we settle. We are starting in the next 4 minutes. And I think because we are starting at 2:30, it means that we have lost half an hour for this session. So we'll try to make the most with the amount of time that is remaining so that we don't interfere with the next session. So the next session will be looking into the future of the DNS industry in Africa. And our moderator will be Adiel. I believe Adiel has been waiting. He's already online. I'll give him an opportunity to introduce himself once the time for the session starts. And then he will introduce his panel. All right, so as we wait for the session to start, for any CCTLDs and DNS operators, you could be a registrar, you could be an ISP. When we break at 4 p.m., we will have a short talk on kind DNS. Yazid here will be taking us through that at the partners booth there, where there's an icon banner. So if you are interested, I would request that you make your way immediately we come to the end of the session to the booth so that Yazid can talk about kind DNS. But before that, the team some flyers will be circulated, which you can look at in the meantime. And I believe it will put you in a better place to ask relevant questions when you meet the Yazid after the session. Another announcement, let's ensure that we have our masks on at all times.
Recording in progress.
All right, it's 2:30 p.m. We will start the recording, and I will invite our moderator, Adiel, to take the floor. I'm also going to invite Rosemary to join me up on the stage, kindly.
Thank you, Barak. And I guess it is a good afternoon for everyone else. So the session today, if we have all the panelists on the podium, I would like to start welcoming them. On the panel today, I will be discussing with Rosemary Cook-Kiwantu, who is a board member of KeNIC. Lucky Maslela, who is the Chief Executive Officer of the ZA Central Registry in South Africa, and Alan Barrett, who is a board member at ICANN. I don't know if Lucky is up. He's on site, right?
Indeed.
Wonderful. So the topic that we are going to talk about today is looking into the future of the Africa DNS Forum. We are celebrating 10 years of that initiative, which originally goal was to support and help develop the domain name industry in Africa. When it was set up, that was one of the main goals of it. It was a little bit around the last new GTLD round, and we have noticed that there was very few applications from Africa, and there was a need to kind of bootstrap the industry. Now, 10 years down the road, it makes sense indeed to look into what has happened since then, what has evolved, what were the wins, and where do we want to go from here. As you know, ICANN is actively working now to launch a new round on the GTLD side. Is the situation mature enough now for us to actively engage in that new round? Is actually the GTLD landscape what is needed for Africa? Do we still have some challenges at the city level? Are the objective, in fact, of the DNS Forum, as said originally, are still valid? There are a few questions like that we'll try to answer throughout this forum. I will discuss with my panelists on some of those questions, but if time allows, because we are limited now to 45 minutes, if time allows, of course, we will be happy to hear from the audience as well. So I will quickly start this discussion with my first panelist, Rosemary. Rosemary, you are on the board of KeNIC, so I would like to have your perspective, indeed, from a CCTLD perspective on those objectives that were set for the DNS Forum, and how you see a forum like this supporting of better helping going forward the industry.
So thank you very much for that question. I guess the main reason that we have a forum like this is that it brings all of us together as experts from a contextual perspective, which is, I guess, Africa, and the various cultural nuances that we have in each jurisdiction. So forums like this are very important because they bring us together and we get to share what our experiences are. I think early in the morning, we shared very candid conversations about education. We even shared issues about financial technology and even, transactions that happen over the internet. So I guess such forums are so critical in terms of building capacity amongst ourselves, one, and even from a technical perspective, I think it's so critical. We get to hear what is happening in other countries, what can we do better? I think we have countries in different states of development. We have South Africa, where there are over 1 million registered. Then we have Kenya, I guess, mid-tier. And then we have the rest who are coming up, even South Sudan. So I guess for us, this is so critical because we get to share. And the key thing also is Africa is an amazing continent with a lot of opportunity. And I guess such sessions help all of us get up to speed in what the opportunities are for us in this. So thank you.
Thank you very much for kind of setting the parameters for the usefulness of the forum. Lucky, you are also a very active participant of this industry for several years. You have seen the DNS forum coming in and bringing together actors every year and discussing some of the challenge of the industry in the region. Can you tell us very briefly your perspective, where we have made progress and where we should be looking at, when projecting ourselves in the future, from both CCTLD perspective, but also GTLD perspective, because you have been also active in that area.
Thanks, Adil, and yeah. I think this topic, it's so ideal and very relevant at this time of the day, because if we had a scribe, we would be now summarizing the discussions over the last 2 days, and that would define the next steps for us. It would have identified all the points that were raised, and they would talk to the future. Now, it would have made it easier for us as a panel to extract things and talk to them. And more than anything, this topic, it also challenges all of us here to make inputs to the future. We could see the future from the kaleidoscope that I have, but I would like to also look it through your own kaleidoscope. If we look at the functions and the duties of the DNS Forum, what it had set itself to achieve, and look at the successes that it has achieved, I think we can say they are measured, they're not sufficient. They have been able to get DNS forums taking place across the continent. A few countries have adopted the same model. 2, we have seen automation of the DNS registry, which resulted in DNSSEC uptake. So those are good things that we need to talk to, But the future that I see, the future that I predict is a future that says we need now to look for an African solution. Yes, technology becomes that base, that foundation. But when you look at the African conditions, we are looking now at the user behavior. What does the African user typically wants to see, and how does he consume the domain name? We have seen issues around affordability, the cost of a domain name. Does that mean that we now have to go into name pooling? That Grace and I, we have a name that we want, but we can't afford it. We both put in our $5 to afford it, because it is not available or easily accessible by an individual. So we probably will see the introduction of community domain names, where domain names now are targeted for communities. We excite communities where we say kimberecommunity.ke, and we get that community of Kimbere to have their own name that would form part of their communication platform. That is possibly the way Africans would be able to communicate. I don't know why, but we probably are behind events. The GTLDs have not been prominent in the DNS forum. We probably need not only look at the CCTLDs, because in our naming space, we now have GTLDs. We probably need to consider including them in the mission and vision of the DNS forum, to talk to the GTLDs. They already are in our space. We cannot ignore that. As we continue, the other thing is the future is, whilst we want to connect our children, how do we connect our children? How do we bring them on board? Possibly we need to think of a collaboration with governments at a very highest level, whereby a domain name is associated with your mobile number. And also to an extent that if you have your mobile number or you have your birth certificate, that must also be associated with your domain name to provide for your social security requirements into the future, and for governments to be able to provide social security features, and to be able to plan better. Where are the youth? Where are the population movement? How is the population growth happening? And it becomes a good planning tool, and we need to be participating in that space. There are a number of things, Adil, that I would raise, but I will park there and I will come back again and bring them up. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lucky. And from what you have said, I've picked a few things that I'm going to come back on. But probably before that, I would like to hear from Alan. I'm not sure he's in the room or online. Is he online? No, doesn't seem he is. So let's continue then. You mentioned something very interesting, Lucky, in your introductory word. That is related to how domain names are used in our region. Because there is a question about, well, yeah, we want to develop the domain name industry in our region. We want to have a more uptake, both from CC and the G perspective. But as a friend of mine will say, domain name are not foods, right? You don't eat domain name. You use domain name to, provide service. You use domain name to be online. You use domain name to be accessible by people, right? So there is a connection there between how those domain names are actually used to match the need in a region and its evolution. Looking at the future of the DNS forum, it is a question that probably we need to flesh out, to look at what are the use of domain name in our region. Yeah, we have the website, we have, that is the common usage. But if we look at the landscape in Africa, we have very less, I would say, emerging ICT and digital economy, so that, link it to the domain name, make it, a little bit weak. So how can we look differently at that?
Yeah, thanks if it's still me. One of the questions that came up yesterday was equally asking if a domain name is going to be relevant into the future, because we can access internet without even owning a domain name. You can have Facebook even without having any identity. And the answer is, it depends which sector of the social stream you function in or under. If you are an artist or a musician, and you have people following you on Twitter or following you on Facebook, and you don't own that domain name, if somewhere in time there is going to be policy change in the world that you can no longer own that account in the current conditions, or if the Americans just Meta changes policies, you will suddenly lose those thousands or millions of followers that you have. Whereas if you were to build your followers on your own name, regardless of what changes happens into the future, you would only be pointing them from your own web page into Facebook or back and forth, whichever way configuration you want. But the fundamental thing is that under your own domain name, which is your web page would have designed, developed, you own your followers. You can never lose them to anything. We also need to understand the power of domain names as a tool for generating content. Today, one of the things that brings us together more than any other time is content generation and content consumption. We need to start consuming and producing our own content using the power of the domain name. And once that is articulated, once that is achieved, I think we will celebrate and understand the value of a domain name. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lucky. I would like to hear from Rosemary on that specific aspect. Rosemary.
Thank you. So I guess I'll pick right from where you've spoken, but I'll even give it a twist from an intellectual property perspective. I think there's a great opportunity, as has been mentioned, for people to own their own assets and develop your own digital identity. In terms of uses, why not even grow it? Why not have part of domain names being part of your digital identity? Why must it be the mobile phone only? What other opportunities are there? And then, of course, when it comes to e-commerce and retail, even moving from your Facebook page to your own website for you to make a payment, ensuring the security. So there's so much opportunity in terms of customization of services and actually truly owning your audience and protecting your intellectual property. I think from a commercial perspective, that makes sense. From governance, today we have very many services that are being offered online in Kenya, and I know even in other countries. What opportunities are there for, government to citizen interaction on secure platforms, as opposed to maybe doing that on and let me not mention a name, on a social media site. Yeah, so I think those are the key opportunities that we should look at. Having a critical analysis of where we are. Must we go the path the rest of the world has gone? Why don't we chart our own unique path that works for us based on all parameters? I guess that would be a nice, a good way to look at things.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I think your conclusion there is where I want us to probably look into how do we design or define the future we want for this domain name industry based on the parameters that are really local to us, right? It's probably not the same way that others are using the domain name, that we may need to use it in Africa before feeling that we are participating into the industry. Two points came out as well about the domain name. The domain name is also about branding. It's a way of projecting your image online and owning it, right? And second is the trust. People trust our company, business, services that have their own identity more than those who are using others' identity. So those are some general usage of domain name that we know. But beyond that, probably in the region, we may need to reinvent ourselves into how we use the domain name. That's bring an idea that we may probably need to explore as well for the DNS Forum, is to bring those actually who use the domain name or who can innovate around the domain name into the forum in a way that they participate as well, so that they can share where and how they want to use the domain name with people who are leading the industry. That could probably be something that give a little bit more wider perspective to the DNS Forum. Of course, it's called DNS Forum, but the user, those who are innovating, those who are developing content, those who are developing an application, those who are looking at how to evolve, identity, quote unquote, can use the DNS. So is there a room for us to extend the reach of the DNS Forum so that future discussion around the DNS Forum involve those who are actually the beneficiary of the domain name industry? Lucky?
An interesting perspective, Adil. And if I were to throw it into another crossroad and then say the following, which continent has 54 countries? Or which other continent has 54 CCTLDs? So that brings a complex way for us to connect and communicate. it means that we need to begin to unpack these 54 CCTLDs. When the report says there is only less than 3 million paid for domain names on a population of 1.5 or 1.2 billion, it paints a picture that we don't have enough users. So this is why when I talk about a local solution to our problem, so we are unique. If you look at the US as a country, it has only .com, probably .org, and then .us. We as a continent, not a country, continent with 54 names. One of those CCTLDs has 1.3, and it is priced differently. That presents a challenge on its own. The domain name in that country costs about $3 per year. 1.3 million names, $3. Then there is another country on the continent that has 5 domain names, probably charging $100 for a domain. So those disparities call for us to think differently. And what does it mean? Collaboration. We should understand our CCTLDs, our country code top level domains, as a tool that we can use to collaborate. We must not see these names to be competing. We should complement. I, living in South Africa, should be using a .ke, and Barak should be able to use a .za, and vice versa. It means the registries, this is another thing that's not included in the DNS forum. Registry association, it does not exist. We need to consider bringing in a registry association so that it can begin to talk to these things at the highest level. Registrars are already existing and organized. So for me, it's going to be dealing with this biggest challenge of 54 CCTLDs and make sure that certain countries are not left behind. And this calls for policy harmonization. It calls for price harmonization. It calls for technology harmonization. There are a number of things that we need to harmonize so that we can better use our resources for innovation, which is what you are asking for. How can we get the users on board? We have to be innovative. We have to be close to our market. We have to be doing a lot more studies. A study that was conducted a few years ago on the DNS market in South Africa, in Africa, needs to be redone. I believe that it's in the pipeline, but we do need that information to begin to provide the answers to the questions that we have. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucky. And the point you have raised kind of touch on the overall digital economy or digital strategy of the continent, because when we start talking about harmonization, when we start talking about bringing registry together, when we start talking about cross-country usage of CCTLDs, etc., that means, you know, a more broader and high-level view of where we want to go. So that raised another more philosophical question about how much is the domain name industry, both from technical, legal, social perspective, is taken into consideration in local and regional digital development strategy today. How prominent, you know, the necessity of having trusted, stable, secure domain name is part of those strategy generally. What do you see on the ground? Which evolution is happening that the DNS forum can, you know, hang on or anchor on to make sure that the DNS and the domain name industry in general is actively part of the overall strategy. And this is not only from technical perspective, but economically, legally, and all the different aspects. Rosemary, you want to?
Yeah, I think I'll take it from a high-level policy perspective. I think in many parts of the world, there's greater adoption, greater absorption, and it was by chance. I think they found things work in a particular way and they took it up. What is sometimes seen as a nascent sort of economy compared to the population, what can be seen as a gap is an opportunity for better organization and better planning. I think having had things where they are as at right now, we could think of restructuring based on our most primary requirements, healthcare, education, and you've mentioned almost a unified sort of strategy, picking on what you've talked about, like why is it a particular way in one country and in another? Why don't we sit together during such forums and plan, this is say our continental strategy, and pick from there and see how best can we utilize these resources that we have for the challenges that we face collectively.
Yeah, spot on, Rosemary. I think we need to find more challenges and create a burning platform for ourselves. And we need not be happy with what we have today. We need to continuously look to evolve ourselves into a better space to provision a better solution for ourselves. I am thinking here, the value of our domain names is so high, yet in terms of the monetary side of things, it is inconsiderate, and nobody addresses that value of Coke, C-O-K-E, _.ke, There's a lot of value in that. How then do we create this value of names? The monetization of our namespace, so that we can then have some people that can appreciate the names, I am thinking of something like auctioning of names. Why don't we auction names? Why don't we create a common platform that is either administered by AFTLD or the DNS forum? It builds a platform, and then you want a name to be auctioned, it's thrown in there, and then the highest bidder gets the name. The revenues from that would be split with those CCTLDs, specific CCTLDs, and then part of that would be to running this platform. And in that way, we'll be able to centrally assist the growth of all CCTLDs across the continent and remove the competition, especially on what we would consider premium names or high value names that can be auctioned. Those are some of the things that we need to be considering or thinking of into the future.
Thank you, Lucky. I want to be a little bit provocative there for the audience and you on the panel. You mentioned about the value of the domain name and the auction and etc. But who defined that value? What are we saying is the value? Why somebody will pay millions of dollars, millions of francs CFA to buy a domain name if they are not using it for anything that in turn, branding wise, application wise, is covering the cost of what they're paying. So again, the conundrum of why are you using the domain name? What are you using the domain name for? Is important to highlight as well, because we can build all the auction platform. At the end of the day, probably it's not people from the region that are going to benefit from it. Other people will see the value in it that we are not seeing ourselves, because either our digital environment or landscape is still weak, or the application that we need are not what others are using.
Yeah, true. We as a continent, again, you would find that a user on the continent would have 2 or 3 mobile phones with different service providers. It is acceptable. We do not yet, we haven't adopted the culture of having more than one domain name. And 2, we haven't understood the value of a domain name, that we can use it as a tool for trading, an online trading platform. I mean, I was listening to a young lady the other day who's seated in the room with us here, Frida. She does online trading. She has her own domain name. She has her own shop. People buy from her. and then she delivers once the transaction has been done. She's happy doing that. And if we can have more Friedas doing the same thing, we will revolutionize the economy. Two, we will also make sure that people understand the value of the domain name. Three, one of the biggest challenges for us on the continent, which has been mentioned again here earlier on by Grace, is that the youthfulness of this continent. We are still growing. We are the only continent that's still growing, incidentally. The entire world is worried. They are shrinking. The population is shrinking. Our economy is growing. And if our economy is growing, it needs for us to think differently. It is how we engage our youth to participate actively in the economy. We cannot leave them behind. In the next DNS forum, we want the youth to be sitting here and talking about the future. We cannot be talking about the future. You know? So those things need to be transformed, not even evolved. They have to be a revolution. You have to take this chair and you have to tell us what you think of the future, not us second guessing or reading our, what's this, glass balls or whatever, you know, glass, yeah. So this is my view about the future and how we can get connected and get more of our youth participating in this ecosystem.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Lucky. For going back to the title of this panel, which is the future, looking into the future, I think one message that is coming clearly for me, from my perspective, what I'm saying, and after this, I will open the floor probably to take one or two questions from the audience, is that we need, if we want the DNS forum to achieve its goal, which is to promote a very vibrant DNS industry or domain name industry, we are probably missing one link there where we need to focus on, which is people who are giving or are understanding or bringing value to the DNS around the table too. We need the DNS forum not to only focus on the technical aspect, because we have been doing that for the past 30 years, you know, building capacity on the technical side, but also extend this to bring around the table people who are innovating, people who can innovate. And Lucky, you mentioned the young generation that are, you know, thriving nowadays, you know, launching new application, doing new thing around the table to share probably their experience using domain name, sharing their needs in terms of accessing domain name, their need in the way domain name can be made available to them, what they need to trust domain name that they're using, how they cross-country access to domain name should work with them. So I think the value side and those who benefit from that value, bringing them around the table is probably one aspect, one thing that we may need to look at for the future of the DNS forum, having that part also brought into the way it is structured and the way it is its contents. It's also designed. I will open the floor probably to the audience. We still have about 10 minutes to go for question or suggestion, of course, on what are the things that we need to focus on for the DNS forum in the future. Barak, I don't know if you can help me monitor the room if there are questions, and hand raised. I don't see any in the.
Thank you, Adiel. Yes, there are a number of questions in the room. I see Mwendwa Kivuva at the far end. If the mic can be passed on the extreme end, that is one. We have two here. Then we have Pierre Danjinu. That's three. There's a remote question. There's a remote question with Magali. The fifth one is Kevin. In that order, please. Please introduce yourself as you speak, since the moderator is not with us in the room. Go ahead, Mwendwa.
Okay, thank you so much, Barak. My name is Mwendwa Kivuva from KICTANET. And first of all, I want to just recognize two important things that have been said. Adiel has talked about involving innovators within the African continent. And we know in Africa, there are so many hubs, innovation hubs, especially in Kenya, Nigeria, South Africa. And those are the innovators who will create the next TikTok, the next YouTube for our continent. And we know all those platforms run on domains. So that's a very important point. So if these forums can be able to involve the youth, the innovators, that would be very important. And of course, there is a second issue that Lucky has talked about on the young population. So I was actually looking at the statistics that 70% of the African population is below 30 years. That is 1 billion people, because Africa is around 1.4 billion. So you can imagine 1 billion people below 30. That is free human resource to play with. And there's usage of the internet, because around 221 million people in Africa are on social media. They're on Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, and the rest. So it means there is actually traction and there is usage of these services. So other things we can do as we promote the domain name system on the sidelines is still continue advocating for enabling environment. For example, increased internet uptake, increased internet connectivity across the continent, lowering taxation of devices. People will not be able to go online if computers are expensive, if they cannot afford smartphones and things like that. Reduce the cost of internet access, reduce taxation also on internet access and other complementary services. And of course, the education system. We need to ensure that as a continent, as we advocate for growth of the domain name system, even from the school system that we have where the kids are getting in, we integrate tech education, STEM in our school system. So these are the enabling and environment that we should advocate for in such forums. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We can have the next question. Try and be brief, please.
Yes, my name is Mark Ambito from Mobile for Good. I just wanted to comment on the uptake of the domain system. Is I think like the registrars, they're not doing enough work. Because we talked yesterday here about Kenya Data Network trying to connect with UNICEF, connect schools. Normally a lot of seminars take place even in Mombasa for school head associations, maybe primary or secondary school head associations. And this is an opportunity where there's something good, but the majority of people do not even know the value of it. So I think KeNIC should actually be going to these forums, having a bench like the one they have outside there, and actually educate the headmasters of the necessity of having, let's say, a website. And I think we have over 1 million schools in Kenya. You can just see the uptake that one can actually. And another way is actually even the population, our population is now a little bit tech savvy. People are on Facebook, people are on Instagram, to actually educate the tech savvy population that even if you have a community, it's not important to just be on a WhatsApp. It's important if your community, you have a group of community, maybe it's a changa for women or what, then you have a website that actually people can get to know about you. And I think if you do that, then I think the uptake in Kenya can actually even move up to 15 million. So that's my take. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We can have
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Pierre D'Angino, for the record. I just wanted to really emphasize what you just said, Lucky, meaning the future we are talking about should be, we should be having an outline of this future, from the younger generations. My impression is that we, at least of us, we've been there. We found out that it was important that Africa be part of the whole, internet networking. We did whatever we could to set up a few sort of institutions, Afrique, AFNOG. And now coming to the DNS Forum, I think time has come also that we really listen to the younger generation. What do they really want? You insisted on the innovation part. I like it. You insisted on the specific sort of, how should I say, specificity of Africa. This is wonderful. And what you are suggesting is that we are able to build on the sort of specificity. But how do we do that one? I think we need to hear more from the younger generation. And my other question, I don't know whether this fit in this session, is what happened between two fora? I mean, between our two DNS forum, what exactly is happening? Are we having resolution that we follow up with so that we are able now to judge the KPI or whatever that we set up? I mean, I think these are some of the things we really need to think about. Of course, we've been sponsoring these things as I can then, but I would like us to really think about what do we do between two fora. Thank you.
Thank you, Pierre.
Thank you very much, Pierre.
Yeah, we can take the remote questions, and then we have another question from Kevin.
Okay, so there's a comment and question. I mean, there are two questions and one comment. The first one from Alex Corentin in English. The comment is, registrant's perspective is a key issue to develop the DNS industry. And then in French, la souveraineté et la citoyenneté numérique doit être un des aspects abordés par le DNS Forum. Quelles sont les stratégies les plus adaptées au niveau local, pays par pays? So this is the first question. The second one from Sheila Camo. Since IoT will be able to communicate with equipment, for instance, our vehicles, and alert owners of the vehicles for service, is DNS projected in such?
Okay, thank you very much.
The
I think we have to wrap up in about 2 or 3 minutes. So let's try in 2 minutes maximum. I'll give the floor to the panelists to kind of touch on some of the questions that were asked. If I look at them, they are all connected. So I will briefly start with Rosemary.
Thank you. So I guess I'll start with a comment in terms of the valuation, premium, high value domain names. In a market like ours, should that be the end game? I think the end game should be what has been said here, discovery, informing more people, letting more people know what this is all about. And I think Kivuva has mentioned a number, 70% being below 30 years. What I'll say to Mark and Pierre, of course, challenge has been accepted. In Kenya, KeNIC supports an initiative by the Kenya ST Action Network, known as the Kenya School of Internet Governance. And today, if you look around this whole event, there are people who are registering you, they were helping out at the booths. All those are the youth that we trained at the Kenya School of Internet Governance, which has been running from the year, I think, 2016. Yeah. So what they did is that they came together and they formed a group. They called it the Kenya Youth in Internet Governance and approached KeNIC and offered to support. So I guess that is a good way. And I'd encourage all the youth who are here not to stop. You're getting started. You've come into a room where you have African experts everywhere. Let's continue engaging. And I guess that has been an amazing thing. And if you see them around, kindly commend them and tell them that they're contributing to the community. The other reflection is, in terms of future, is regarding the fact that we're at the edge of the 4th industrial revolution. What does it mean for these resources and for us as a continent? What are our thoughts around that? Maybe not to be answered this year, maybe thoughts as we move ahead to other things like quantum computing. What does it mean for us as a continent? So I guess that's my reflection on the conversation so far, and an answer regarding the youth. So yes, challenge has been accepted and we've started.
Thank you very much, Rosemary. Okay.
Yeah, again, thank you a lot, especially the question around the resolution. What do we do with the material, the body of information that we come up with at each sitting? We need to be very, proactive with regards to that kind of information we're gathering. If one were to think and take stock of the number of gatherings, forums across the continent, what do we know has happened in Ghana when they had their DNS forum? What came out of the Benin forum? What best lessons can we incorporate and integrate into this bigger sitting, which represents the entire continent? For me, if the challenge has been accepted, the innovation hub to have the next generation that will be innovative, coming up with new solutions that define or will assist in the uptake of a domain name, then our youth are ready in that space, and we need to give them the baton. And we must know a baton will never be handed to you when you're sitting down. You will receive it when you are running. I thank you.
Thank you, Lucky. I will just try to wrap this up by saying first, it is clear that the future of the DNS forum will be secure if the DNS forum can extend to bringing more young population around the table, but not only just bringing them, but bringing them with the view that they are the one who are going to create value for the domain name. Without us linking the value to the name, we will not be able to evolve. So young that you bring in should come up with their innovative mindset, with their innovation, so that to one, understand that there are solutions to use domain name to connect to those innovation. And secondly, making sure that those who are creating content on the continent nowadays, those who are building data center, those who are providing a house for those content also are connected to the domain name industry, because that chain, it's a value of chain whereby the use of the domain name has to be connected to those who are providing the domain name. The second thing that I will say, and the challenge that Pierre raised, is what are we doing with the outcome of the discussion that we have during these face-to-face DNS forum? What happened between meeting? So we need to probably better capture the discussion that we have at one forum and project those capture or share them with the industry and take action from those things. Another way of doing that as well is to build a community that continue to exchange beyond the meeting. That means having online platform where dedicated to the domain name industry, where we invite different sector of the industry to discuss what were said during the forum and try to build a perspective going forward. Thank you very much. We haven't been able to address all the questions. Yes, there have been two questions on the virtual platform as well. One on the national strategy on using domain name for digital sovereignty. I think that's also an important topic, particularly coming to the CCTLD, how we bring that into our discussion as a global forum. And the second about the IoT and the DNS. Yes, there is the projection in using the DNS for IoT. There are several work being done right now from standard perspective and also application perspective to make sure that the DNS work well in the IoT and very volatile communication environment. Thank you very much, all of you. Very interesting discussion, and we will try to follow up with the takeaway of this panel for the future of the DNS forum. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Adia.
Thank you.
I think he deserves a better round of applause. Thank you very much. And to Rosemary and Lucky, they also deserve a better round of applause for keeping you awake after that heavy lunch. So we are moving to the next session. And as the panel takes a photo up here, just to note that at country level, the DNS Forum Secretariat, FTLD, ICANN, we are working together with ISOC to encourage establishment of national fora. So what we had on day 0, the Kenya DNS Forum, is not a fluke. It's a deliberate effort to ensure that we have national communities of practice. You saw in the national showcases a number of DNS national fora that have been presented. And we hope that at least by the end of this decade, every country will be able to organize this kind of forum on its own with local resources as an important outcome of this particular discussion that we are talking about. We were not able to give Kevin a chance to speak, but I believe he will comment in due course as we move. So I would like to invite the next panel. Bob will be moderating the session. And I would like to invite Pierre, Ali, and Mohamed Diop. It will basically be the closing ceremony.
I think we should start by giving Barack a hearty clap. We have seriously overworked him. I think we all owe him a drink later today. So please, my panel, if you may come up. Ali, I think Pierre is also in the room. Do you have a confirmation if Diop is online? So as they come up, I just wanted to reiterate, what Barack was saying. And the truth is, until the DNS conversation becomes a national conversation, it is still hidden. It is still behind the scenes. We will not cash in, as has been said before, on that potential. I think what we notice here is the DNS has that capacity and ability to equally contribute to our IGDP, just like the different segments of the digital economy. So that is precisely the reason why we are encouraging national DNS forums. So if you are in a DNS ecosystem in country, if you are registries, please take the initiative of organizing national DNS forum. Start small, it will grow. Benin has demonstrated that. I think Kenya is now in the second year, if not so. Let us start those dialogues going. Joe, you are in this session as well. Okay, so it's been
Bob, I'm in the session, okay? So just to confirm that I'm online, thank you.
Of lots of discussions, and it's that time that we now would want to bring the forum to a close, at least the Africa DNS part of it, as we usher in another segment, which our local host will be announcing. So that means I will be asking him to speak last. So without much ado, do you have confirmation about Diop, if he's online? Magali?
Diop is online. I'm online.
So as we look for...
You hear me? Yes, you hear me?
Yes, Mohammed. So please, before we lose you, please, I would like to just grant you the opportunity to have your closing remarks as we wind up the Africa DNS Forum 2022. So over to you.
Thank you very much, Bob, and thank you to all the panelists and the organizers for the different topics that have been raised during this Africa DNS Forum. I cannot end up Any message of closing before raising some key points that we have to keep in mind? Because it's a unique occasion that we have as organizer for the domain name industry to talk, to foresee, and also to anticipate a big change and shift that can happen in the market. Our role is not only to live within the market, but our role is to predict and to help the whole community anticipate and give a proper solution for our community, not to get lost when this change happens.
Sorry to cut you. The sound is not very clear. Maybe let's try and call you back. So as we work on that, to get you back online on a clearer line. Yes, please. So we'll try it one more time. Yeah. So meanwhile, then allow me to invite the president of AFTL, Ali Madi, to make his closing remarks. Ali.
Merci, Bob. Bonsoir à tout le monde et bonjour à tous ceux-là qui nous suivent en ligne et qui ont un fuseau horaire très décalé par rapport au nôtre. Là, tout de suite, nous sommes arrivés au terme de l'édition de cette année qui a été marquée par le 10e anniversaire justement du DNS Forum. Donc, ce qui a montré que ça, c'est un engagement très fort de la part de la communauté africaine qui ont commencé jusqu'à aujourd'hui où nous avons célébré le 10e anniversaire de cet événement. Comme nous sommes à la fin de cette édition, c'est toujours émouvant de voir que nous sommes appelés à se dire au revoir. Parce que ce n'est pas un adieu, c'est un au revoir, tout en espérant que nous allons tirer le maximum de profit au terme de cette édition. Donc, les débats étaient riches, à mon avis, parce qu'on a pu toucher à tous les volets qui doivent, en principe, nous permettre d'aller de l'avant, que ce soit sur le plan de la sécurité DNS ou bien le renforcement des sécurités et les différents investissements qui doivent s'opérer pour assurer le développement de l'industrie DNS en Afrique. Nombreux sont ceux-là qui ont insisté sur, et c'est une réalité d'ailleurs, que l'Afrique, ça c'est la région qui promet une croissance parce que tout est ouvert et la pénétration de l'Internet commence à atteindre un niveau, je ne dis pas très important, mais quand même nombreux sont les pays qui sont interconnectés actuellement à travers le réseau sous-marin, la fibre optique. Donc, ce qui fait que sur le plan infrastructure, donc quand même nous sommes outillés. Il suffit maintenant de capitaliser toutes les ressources dont nous disposons. Je tenais également à insister sur l'avenir de ces événements qui reposent sur l'engagement de chacun d'entre nous. Nous savons très bien que ça, nous travaillons, nous sommes dans une chaîne de valeur. C'est comme dans un match de basket. Le terrain est très petit, mais à chaque fois qu'il y a un joueur qui s'arrête, vous savez tous, vous qui êtes joueur de basket, que voilà, ça, le rythme se casse. Donc, c'est difficile justement de maintenir le rythme. Donc, j'appelle à tous les acteurs que nous sommes sur la chaîne des valeurs, que chacun doit apporter sa petite pierre pour pouvoir justement maintenir cette valeur que nous avons créée, que nous devons maintenir et que nous devons justement veiller à ce que nous trouvions les fruits et les résultats escomptés. Les résultats dans le sens de valoriser nos compétences, notamment en intégrant les jeunes, d'ailleurs, c'est un débat qui avait été planifié juste avant cette session. Et nous avons remarqué que les jeunes viennent toujours sur la table des discussions, des débats, qu'il faut les impliquer, mais à savoir aussi qu'il faut les outiller. Il faut créer un environnement propice qui leur permettront d'évoluer, que ce soit sur le plan réglementaire, que ce soit sur le plan financement, parce qu'il est difficile aujourd'hui qu'un jeune puisse évoluer dans ce domaine si l'accès à l'Internet est très difficile. Donc, ça, c'est clair. Il est difficile aujourd'hui qu'un jeune évolue ou bien s'investisse s'il y a un frein énorme au niveau des banques. Donc, ça veut dire que c'est toute la chaîne qui fait que chacun d'entre nous doit contribuer parce que les banques ne peuvent pas fonctionner. Si aujourd'hui, Internet est coupé, les compagnies aériennes, etc., ça veut dire qu'il n'y a personne qui est épargné dans cette chaîne de valeur. Nous avons aussi parlé que dans l'industrie DNS, on ne peut pas parler d'un développement sans l'application et l'engagement fort des différents registres. Donc, les gestionnaires, justement, des CCTLD ont un rôle très important, tant sur le plan infrastructurel, tant sur le plan social, marketing, etc. Mais il faut aussi que les registraires, les bureaux d'enregistrement soient outillés et accès réel, justement, aux différentes infrastructures et aux différentes formations nécessaires qui leur permettront justement de bénéficier d'une capacité importante dans le domaine de l'industrie DNS. Donc, je ne vais pas monopoliser trop la parole, c'est juste pour dire que l'AFTLD tient à remercier tous les partenaires, tous les sponsors, et tous ceux-là qui ont contribué pour la réussite justement de cet événement, et particulièrement une mention particulière à notre hôte qui est KeNIC et toutes les autorités locales. Nous sommes ravis d'être là à nouveau et nous avons quand même connu un accueil chaleureux et nous pensons que chacun de nous retournera à la maison avec une satisfaction nette de la part de toute la population, je dirais comme ça, et toute la communauté, les autorités locales. Je vous remercie. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much, Ali. I believe we now have Mohammed one more time.
Is it okay now in terms of audio? Bob, do you hear me?
Yes, please.
Bob?
Please proceed.
Bob,
we can hear you. It's better now.
Hello? If you hear me and it is much better, so I can start, right?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, thank you, Bob. Okay. So I hear also loudly the message from Ali, and I think that it's also the time to recognize all the effort that have been done by the whole team. And I think that going forward and moving forward, it's time for us to exchange a little bit about the future of this. Because before that, I think that it's a time to congratulate all the champions from IF Registrar. I'm thinking about all the members that have been trying so hard for the past 10 years to move their business in a context that is very hard to survive and to move and to progress due to a small market and strong competition, not only from local registrar, but from international registrar on our market in Africa. So I think that when we create the spirit of the African DNS Forum, it was the occasion for us to collaborate among ourselves as Africans and try to build our market by our local players, not international players only, but using our force, local force, starting small and growing in order to better serve the continent. So the challenges that we have facing up to now is the fact that there was a very weak cooperation between between African organizations to make the market move very quick, very fast. And in the context of weaknesses of our own countries, we are small countries. There are so many underdeveloped countries, underserved areas in Africa, more than any other part of the world. So it's a fact that we need to put and to integrate into our exchanges. So it's not like a mystery to see GoDaddy become #1 worldwide with the close relationship that they have with VeriSign for the .com and .net. At the end of the day, they represent more than 50% of the market, and they have strong cooperation between GoDaddy and VeriSign. One is the registry, one is the registrar, they are all Americans. So when it comes to Africa, when we try to build up and to set up strong relationships between actors, it's almost a very hard exercise that we are doing. And that's time for us, and I urge you guys to understand that it's time to have strong MOU between local registrar and CCTLDs and African GTLDs. This is the only way that we can survive and expand our market. The second aspect is we have many threats coming on the DNS. Our role as an organization is not just to wait for things to happen and to discover it as everybody. It's not our role. Our role is to anticipate for the African market and to help them understand that there are threats on the DNS. Not only technical threat, as it has been expressed during the previous communication, but we have threats on the global DNS system. While there are parallel systems that have been proposed with different naming protocols happening, and people are discussing it at a very high level, at IETF, at the high level of ICANN, so people know that there are threats coming. And we African were not anticipating threat. And I don't want what happened, for example, with the other protocol before, that you wake up one day, it's just like the system you have in your hand will become useless because people have moved to other stages and to other areas. So our role is to help anticipate. And I think that one of the questions yesterday was, what was the role of the university and so far? So now it's not only dedicated to university to do research. Research have been between private sector, academia, and all the others. They are working closely because it's become concept and items and ideas that are shared among communities. It's not only reserved to academia to talk about these problems, but it becomes really problems that need to be anticipated at a higher level. The second weaknesses I have seen, and I don't want us to go that fast. If you look at the IGF spirit, when we do global IGF, many people are coming all around the world to exchange. When we regionalize the IGF meeting and we nationalize it, it becomes areas where people are no longer debating the global issues, where things are heading to. So national discussion is important, but as a continent, everything that we have achieved up to now was not done only at a national. So we have a global institution that is the African Union. Remember that all the different recommendations that have been adopted by the African Union was guidelines for all the countries to adopt it and to move fast. Because of what? Because at the national level, we don't have enough resources to have such a discussion. Go to any individual countries. If you look at how many registrars you have, raising all the problem of privacy, data integrity, personal data, GDPR, or all these rules, how many people are talking about that? Because we are not numbers, we are very few. So the impact that we have to have discussion at that global level, we cannot have it so far at a national level because players are too small. The numbers are not there. So that's why I urge you to come back to our initial strategy, is to consolidate what we have done at the global stage. And coming from there, it will be very easy to adopt regional and national strategy. That's my advice. And I think that that's the way to move forward. But focusing on national, we will lose what we have built up to now. So that's one of the different messages that I want to share, and also to encourage our global partners to support the initiatives. Nothing is granted, everything can be reversed back. And down the line, what we just want to do is in the next 10 years, we anticipate all the different evolution that we're going to have in the naming space, because the content industry is coming with different concepts, and the naming will be changing, will be evolving, and we don't want Africa to be left behind. So that was the message I want to share with you guys. Thank you for being there, and congratulations to those who have been granted the awards, and to all the others who have been working so hard for the past more than 10 years to build that ecosystem. We want to tell you thank you, even if your name is not showing up. What you have done so far was not useless. It's a legacy that all the African continent will be continuing to using. Thank you very much for your attention. I'm sorry to be so long, but we have threat and we need to be prepared to anticipate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mohammed, and for following very keenly remotely. I think the meeting is truly hybrid. So now I invite Pierre to also make his closing comments. Pierre, over to you.
Thank you very much, Bob. And of course, before I actually go into what I would like to say, once again, emphasize what Mohammed had just said. And in fact, when he's talking like that, sometimes I do have an issue in which hat, am I wearing, in terms of talking about what is to be done. I mean, in Africa, how much, Africans themselves, need to really understand and have a strategy vis-a-vis the internet and development, and how much, we could be doing then when wearing the hats, of ICANN and other institutions. I think that's quite important. In fact, I also remember that when the Africa strategy was being crafted to know exactly what to do, how to assist, we wanted to really listen to Africans and tell us exactly what they want. What I've grasped so far from this gathering here, there are so many fruitful discussions. I put the question earlier on about how much of this is being planned in such a way that we know exactly what eventually one might be doing between two sort of DNS forums in Africa. I think that's also about building a kind of a sustainability in the DNS forum. I think it's important to probably think about it. I'm also going to blame ourselves in terms of our organizers that probably we needed to dwell far more into this. What have we achieved actually? What has been the impact of this forum so far? Probably we did cater for more time discussing this, but the good thing here is that there are so many lessons learned, and also the discussions, have been quite rich, and there's food for thought here. Now, as far as ICANN is concerned, of course, I would like here to say that, of course, we are still ready because I'm seeing a kind of continuity here. I mean, people really still want to have this forum. Of course, we are ready to continue the support, and quickly, some of the development that we are having today within ICANN is showing that, well, we are moving to that direction of supporting in a few things. So, for instance, the study on the DNS market in Africa, I think the update of this study now is already launched, and then probably in 6 to 8 month time, we might have that documents and then to be shared, so that one have a full picture of the domain name market in Africa. So this is something that we will be accomplishing. The other thing is about there were questions about the value of the domain name. Seems to me that it all boils down to the messaging we are having, meaning the technical guys, might be understanding whatever they are talking about. But how much of all of this is being really understood by those I call decision makers, those from the government. And we've been having a few discussions here, during this forum, and we also understood there was a request for us to, what are you doing about the DNS entrepreneurship in Africa? In fact, we received a direct, request on, okay, how are you making sure that African entrepreneurs, because we do have figures there, and we also know that people are making money out of the domain name, so how do you prepare, the younger generation to actually understand what is in there, and then via innovations, they are able to kind of profit by this. So I think it's quite important. Those are things that we are taking away, and we are happy to be supporting this. Now, I think it's also a question of the business model also that you might wish to be having, in the countries, and how the multi-stakeholder model is also approached in different countries. Now, having said that, I would just like to thank, KeNIC for the quite good preparation and good, welcome and what have been doing here, and especially the facilities we have. And of course, the communication authorities of this country that we really appreciate what we've been doing with them. And also remind you that we are coming up with a new project, which is called the Coalition for Digital Africa. It's about collaboration, between, continental, but at the same time, it's about pooling resources if possible. And we are ready to kind of start this sort of project in the coming month, and you'll be hearing more about the details of this. Let me thank, of course, all the organizers, and also thank my our colleague from ICANN, who has been really supporting here. Yeah, so these are in a few words what I really wanted to share, and hopefully that we should be meeting for the next forum. So thanks for your attention.
Well,
Bob, may I add something?
Here for those comments. I think I would now like to invite our local host to have the last word. I am not sure what he has observed from his guests, since we were all his guests during these 3 days, and also give a vote of thanks as he gives his closing remarks. So, Joel, over to you.
Thank you, Bob. Good afternoon, everyone. Turn to the person next to you and say, we made it. We've spent 3 days here learning, socializing, interacting. It is not easy. Yeah, Pierre has reminded me there were some people who were dancing heavily last night. It's all part of what a DNS forum is all about. It's not just about the hard work. It's also getting to know someone, getting to know someone new, and making sure that you live here with a new friend. And I hope that has happened in the last 3 days. I'll not go back to the comments my other colleagues have talked about in terms of what I have seen, but just from a general perspective, the interaction, the panels, the information that has been shared is great information. As KeNIC, we shall present a report which can be used for follow-up in terms of some of the conversations that have happened. My team has been taking some notes. So some of the questions that Lucky was asking, how do we move forward? This report will help the organizing committee just to follow up on some of the things we've discussed and declared at this meeting. We've had guests from all around the world, and as the Kenya local host, we are proud that you selected Kenya to be the host of the Africa DNS and on its 10th anniversary. And for that, to the partners, AFTLD, ICANN, and AfRegister, we thank you. It could have been any other country, but you gave us the opportunity to be the host for this. So we thank you as KeNIC, we thank you as Kenya, and we hope that before you leave, please don't leave with all your dollars. Please enjoy a bit of the Kenyan hospitality. I promised the CA and our government that our GDP will rise by 10% after this week. So please spend some money. Don't go back with it, please. I know there was a question in one of the panels around payment channels. We have all of them. So don't have an excuse not to spend some money here. On the other hand, I'd just like to thank our sponsors, and I'll start with Communications Authority of Kenya, who have been the bedrock of this organization. They have helped us through and through. I know the ICANN team actually visited the office and some robust conversations were held, and we expect to see more of these collaborations within the ecosystem. Secondly, Liquid Intelligent, a big partner. They have provided our internet for the last 3 days. I hope it was stable. As for me, it was stable. I was able to watch some cartoons at some point. So I'm sure that you've been able to use that resource. We have KeNET, who are our education partners, who came in and supported this process. We have Africa Data Center at the back there. If your country requires services from a data center perspective, they're in 15 countries, they can provide for you the solution that you're looking for. We have PIAX, again, another data center, which is also present. Again, you can have a chat with them. And I know there is another data center in the room, they're quiet, but I will point you to where they are, who also you can actually have a chat with them. Huawei Kenya office for giving us the support in terms of just making sure that this event is able to happen. So those were our sponsors for that. To our partners, again, I will not stop to thank you, FTLD, ICANN, Register, for making sure that this event took place, and it is going to continue. I was hearing now, after 10 years, how does the next 10 years look like? I think this is a very important forum. The DNS Forum for Africa is important, and we must continue to host this forum where possible. As Mohamed has said, we have to talk as Africa. And this is one of the places that we must come together to talk as Africa. To the speakers who have been up here, the moderators, I know it is not easy preparing. You're given a topic, you have to go and research. It is not easy, but you've come to the stage, you've pulled off, and you've given information to the participants. So I would like to thank all the moderators and all the speakers for giving us the time to be able to share your knowledge and your expertise in terms of the DNS ecosystem. To you, the participants, without you, there would be no meeting. You've been here for 3 days, you've sat through and through, you've listened, you've asked questions, you've gotten what you came to look for, which is information. And we thank you for being with us through those 3 days. It's not easy, I know, but for the last 3 days, you've been able to sit with us and just support this DNS for us. And that's why I asked at the very beginning, make sure you tell your person, we made it. We were at the 10th DNS forum, and that is a great milestone. For those of you who are updating your CVs, please put it as part of the activities that you have done in your CV going forward. To the support team at KeNIC, I know they are all over the place, and those who work at KeNIC and have supported, you saw them around at the registration. Please put a round of applause for them for just keeping you together. Okay? There are some people that we don't mention, but Pierre had mentioned. The government, I know some of you at the very initial had some issues with visas. It's natural, but you all made it. As I said, we made it. So even from that part, we thank the government of Kenya, because now at least we have e-visas. So for those of you who would come, you're able to get an e-visa and come. So we also thank them for that process, because we also engage them to a certain extent to assist on this. With those few words, the last and not the least is to the board of KeNIC. They believed in this project. When we went to them and said, we've been requested to host the DNS forum, we went to the board and the board said, go ahead. And the board members are sitting here. They've been sitting here for the last 3 days. They've listened, they've given their comments, and I think they are proud to say they signed off for this event to happen. So to the board of KeNIC, thank you very much for believing in this project. And I hope we've made you proud as the team and all the participants today. Without further ado, Bob, I'll hand over back to you, unless if I've missed anyone. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Oh, my good friends at the back, my Tusker drinking gang. Thank you very much to the tech team for all the support. I'm sure the people online have enjoyed. They've not missed a single bit of this event. To the people who supplied us with the equipment, again, also top-notch organization. To the hotel, Ole Sereni, we chose this specifically for two reasons. One, it has one of the best views in Nairobi, and two, we're trying to throw Bob in the national park. So we have only achieved one so far, which was giving you views of Nairobi from a hotel. I know we've gone to other conferences where all we see is brick and mortar. So I hope you've gotten a few of the sites, you've taken a few pictures, and I hope, again, as I said, in the next 1 or 2 days, you'll also be able to enjoy some of what Nairobi has to offer. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you very much, Joe. A round of applause for him.
Oh yes, sorry, Bob, sorry.
Yeah.
I forgot one and I don't know where they are. I've been looking for them for 3 days. Where are the interpreters? Where have they been hiding? I know they're in a room somewhere.
They are members of a secret working group.
The secret working group, which is led by Elaine, the chair of the secret working group by Elaine. I think we should give a hand to the interpreters. Those people have done a magnificent, magnificent job. We have gotten the information when we needed it. Usually when I go for meetings with Ali here, between English and French, we struggle. I think I've understood Ali more in the last 3 days than ever before. So we thank the interpreters for the good work. And again, I said, if I've missed anyone, please take our thanks. Make sure that you take back to your teams the thanks from Nairobi and Kenya. Thank you very much.
Thank you. In fact, Joel, I was about to remind us of our interpreters. Otherwise, we could be next to each other, but we are strangers because we will not be able to communicate. So thank you for remembering that critical component of this meeting. Otherwise, we would not last 2 days. I'll just make a few announcements because the meeting is effectively officially closed, but please, my panel, just hold on a bit. So I have 3 very quick announcements for our housekeeping. AFTLD members, you are requested to meet within this room at 5 o'clock, so that is an hour from now. Then Yazid, if you could just wave. We all know Yazid, isn't it? Yazid? So Yazid is asking all DNS operators to please have 5 minutes with him at the ICANN booth. He has a very kind program that he would like one to whisper to you. So please, 5 minutes with Yazid at the ICANN booth, please.